My name is Talya Salvadore, and my artist presentation is on Cara Romero. Who is Cara Romero? Cara Romero was born in Inglewood, California in 1977 to a native father and a non-native mother, which would shape her adulthood and later her art career. Her father is part of the Chemehuevi tribe, a reservation located in southeastern California in the Mojave Desert. Her parents divorced at a young age, and she split her childhood between California and Houston, Texas, which is where her mother called home. There, she studied at the University of Houston to pursue a career in cultural anthropology, which is the study of human societies and cultural development. These studies began to bring out questions and furthered her love and connection to her tribe and her roots that stemmed from it. The start. During her studies at the University of Houston, she began to notice how misrepresented her people, the natives, were. When interviewed for an article on her work for Pasatiempo, she was asked what began the change in her view and responded, "One was disillusionment over how native study courses represented indigenous peoples. Everything was taught as bygone or in historic context," she says. "I realized that most people didn't have a really good grasp of contemporary native peoples." Romero took a black and white photography class that she says changed her life. Her professor, Bill Thomas, was a protest photographer who focused on content over everything else. This tied into what Romero loved about her culture and how to represent them the correct way, and is what really began her love for photography. She could put art and representation together. She says for Pasatiempo, "I was way behind the other students. I had never owned a camera or picked up a camera before this class, but I had no problem figuring out the content portion. I figured out early on the power of photography to convey message, storytelling, and that old adage, a picture is worth 1,000 words. I just knew that it's what I wanted to pursue. I wanted to be a photodocumentarian, a photojournalist." The roots of a photography career. Romero trained herself in Darkroom Techniques, which is ideally a room that lets absolutely no light in apart from a red light. This allows one's photos to develop at a higher quality rate. She focused on silver gelatin printing, which is essentially black and white photographs. According to Irving Penn, this way of developing photographs allows for chemicals to come together, as gelatin layer is made up of an emulsion that consists of light-sensitive silver compounds that form the image following exposure of the negative and development in a chemical bath. This is a very common practice amongst photographers that print black and white photos. Romero went on to study at Oklahoma State University, where she advanced her photography studies, focusing on commercial photography. This concentrated on how to market yourself and start selling your art. An intro into Romero's art. Cara Romero is a contemporary fine art photographer. What does this mean? Well, it's the way an artist creates an image using an analog or digital camera. The word contemporary and modern are used interchangeably, and although the two are similar, contemporary is used to describe her in a way of being an artist now, a present artist creating or taking photographs in our time. Romero has experience in film, digital, fine art, and commercial photography, but focuses on staging, theatrical compositions infused with dramatic color, her website writes. Her images create a story, and she puts her skills and experience to use to show modern native peoples and illuminating indigenous worldviews and aspects, supernaturalism, and everyday life. Her true focus is to present modern native identities and to keep the conversation about how powerful they are, that their culture means something. She takes inspiration from indigenous women and brings that to life through her photography. The start of the story. Cara Romero begins with sketches that come from her ideas. She knows what she wants her photo to look like and begins the vision before it comes to life. It is important for her to know who she is photographing and takes their stories into account when photographing them. She said in an interview with Maria Manuela, "I tell the stories I tell because I know the people. We have a relationship. There's a whole interview process where we're co-creating the story together," she says. "We're trying to convey something that the outside world doesn't know about contemporary Native people." Redefining Native Art. Romero's focus in her art is portraying natives in the light in which they deserve to be portrayed in, through their personal stories and their culture. She was given a grant by Collective, which aims to build indigenous power through organizing, activism, social enterprise, and storytelling. Romero's goal was to take photographs that focus on giving visibility, resilience, beauty, and strength of Southern California's indigenous peoples, Anna Wallenstein writes. It is very important to her to get these stories from the people in these tribes and bring them to life through her projects. Romero's non-realist photography prioritizes storytelling and imagination. Her portrayals use contemporary models and pop culture references to challenge Native stereotypes with complexity, vitality, and often playfulness, Anna Wallenstein also says. She begins with hundreds of rough-cut photos and breaks these down. She then uses Photoshop to play with colors and bring life to these images. This brings out the magic in art and the realism and supernatural look that she is going for.
I wanted to be able to communicate visually through photography, modern Native life. With a photograph, you get one frame to tell a story. And so how can you create a story that communicates as much as you possibly can in one moment? That was where the invention for me of creating these staged photographs came from. It's a blend of absolutely traditional photography and of modern photography technology to tell the stories and create the images that I wanted to create. It's photography with a painterly approach.
The American Girl series. Cara Romero's American Girl series is one of her most famous ones. It focuses on Native American women and placing them in a box just like your average Barbie doll would be. In these boxes, they are surrounded by symbols of their identity and relationships. Romero wanted to hear their story first, and for them to tell her what was important to them in regards to the culture that they shared, and thus turn that into her art. She began this work in 2015 and has continued on with it, adding more Indigenous women and their stories to the collection. These Native Barbie dolls were in response to many things, but most importantly, it was responding to how Native American women were portrayed by dolls like Barbie and American Girl doll. When Romero had a daughter, she saw just how misrepresented Native American women were as dolls. "They have one American Girl doll that's a Native American," Romero said. "Or at a truck stop, these dolls are always wildly offensive. There is never any detail in the regalia. No attention and love to the details. No acknowledgments of more than 250 tribes. They're these kinds of failures," she said for an interview with Tamara Eichenberg. Wakiya, 2015. The woman pictured is Wakiya, and she stands proudly in her box as the very first model to be a part of Romero's American Girl doll series. She is pictured wearing a traditional Southern buckskin ensemble. Romero told Eichenberg that the ensemble took more than a year and 5 of Wakiya's family members to make. These are the sorts of things that Romero wanted to come out in the photo. The details, the focus, and the beauty of their culture. In her box are things she cherishes the most. This photo won her a first-place award in photography for the Heard Museum and will be placed in the Museum of World Cultures collection at the MoMA that is set to open in the spring of 2022. This photo gained a lot of attention from Native females a part of other tribes who wanted to be displayed the same way as Wakiya, with their physical beauty and the beauty of their culture surrounding them. We Are Native Women. Jenna and Ka are both photographs shot by Cara Romero and shown in the We Are Native Women exhibition, which focused on the strength and beauty of women from various Native tribes. This exhibition was put on at the Rainmaker Gallery in the UK and celebrated the diversity of women with works from 12 contemporary Native artists from either the United States or Canada. Its focus was to give them a voice through art. Cara Romero says her piece Jenna captures the innate power of women. It isn't about making women strong. Women are already strong. It's a subtle and powerful shift to have a woman behind the camera, asserting how badass we are, taking back the narrative. Her piece Ka is another photograph to embolden the conversation and reinforce that we're powerful, Indigenous, and modern, and that's at the heart and soul of the work, she says. Billboards, Road to Coachella. Desert X is an art exhibition set up in Coachella Valley. These billboards are lined up on the road to the festival, and all those who attend take this road to get there, forcing them to see these artworks and images. Amongst these billboards are photographs and other pieces done by natives. Romero used these billboards to show Southern California people, and any others who travel along this road, that they are on native land. She uses her nephews as models in her Desert X billboard series. She named them Jackrabbit, Cottontail, and Spirit of the Desert to bring attention to the lands of the Moabi, Kawiya, Serrano, and Chemehuevi people. She brings politics into her artwork too, mentioning the wall that was set to be built in that area and to tell people that this land does not belong to politicians who think they can claim it, but to the people who were born here, her fellow natives. How the world responds to Cara Romero. Cara Romero is a powerhouse. She is a movement herself. It takes someone bold and powerful to bring not only beautiful photographs to life, but activism to them too. Artists and critics around the world respond to Cara Romero's work the way that most people would, with awe. Bear Robe, a fellow artist and admirer of Romero's work, says Cara is a building narrative. She's not hiding the fact that her photographs are staged. It's hers, the one that she wants to create. And it's an indigenous narrative we have not seen. Ka Fowao, who was photographed for one of the We Are Native Women series by Romero, says that there is a lack of representation of Native women and that Romero brings the conversation to the table. It's not just beautiful photos with beautiful women, it's them, their culture, and their story. The power of a female artist. Romero's strength and power comes from a point of view that has been silenced for far too long. I find her push to be the photographer that she is captivating and motivational. Her work is inspirational and beautiful. She has dedicated her life to capturing the stories of her fellow natives, especially her fellow Native American women, and proves that she's passionate about giving them a voice. She truly wants to see a change in the modern discussion of Indigenous people, and although there is a long road and many changes to be made, her artwork has already proven to captivate audiences around the world and begin these conversations. She ends on her website saying, "I unapologetically depict where we are now, in the present day, making sure to always respect cultural protocol and ancestral ties." This is the voice of a powerful woman artist who will continue to open doors for all future female artists, especially Native American women.